All right, what's up, everybody? It's Mark Parson, and we're at DB Network, and we're with one of my close friends. I call him one of my young fellas because I'm a little up in age. I'm 37, but he has impressed me. Number one, for his seeking of the knowledge and the mastery of the game and ball, his high football IQ. Coach Kenny Lucky. He's an NFL coach, a D1A coach. He's coached all different levels. How you doing today, Coach?
Good, man. I appreciate just getting a chance to spend some time with you fine gentlemen today and talk about the game of football. So,
Absolutely. We really want to appreciate you and let you know we appreciate you, and thanks for getting on our podcast to help the millions of people, from parents, coaches, and players. Man, we really appreciate you for hopping on the podcast today.
no doubt, no doubt. I appreciate you.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, thank you for being the first ever coach that we bring on, and high level coach at that. So I want to kick it off, just with you giving your resume. So you play ball, and now you're coaching it. Just a quick summary on your journey from athlete to coach.
So I was the first ever captain at my high school, Northmont High School in Dayton, Ohio. The first ever captain to be voted who was not a big time player. And I was 17 years old, and I think that's when I realized that I could be a leader. I knew I had leadership traits. I knew I was doing it the right way, trying to be a motivator for my friends. But when I realized that they all voted me, not the coaches, that they voted, they said, "Man, this guy, he needs to lead us." And so that was an eye-opening experience as a boy, realizing that I had leadership quality. That's when I went to Ohio University. I actually was a student coach all 4 years of college. So my college experience was much different than a lot of others. A lot of athletes who became coaches who played in college, they know the daily grind. My daily grind was a little bit different. I was breaking down film, I was drawing cards, I was looking at stats and reports, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the game, the process. That then led me to becoming a graduate assistant. Um, I've always been with the secondary, but when I GA'd, I got a chance to be with the D line. So that was a really eye opening experience. And then I think that's when us skill guys can learn how soft we are compared to the trenches, right? It's a different game when it's played in the field versus when it's played in the trenches. So that is when I learned about the trenches. I went to the University of Dayton to coach the secondary, Morehead State coaching linebackers, Southern Arkansas coaching the secondary. I spent time at Akron working with the secondary. I spent time at UMass working with special teams. I've been to Georgia Tech working with the secondary, and and I actually got a chance to intern in the NFL with the New York Jets, working with the secondary. So that is my baby, my niche is the secondary.
Now, Coach, you know what's wild? It's a small world, because like you came after me, obviously at Ohio University. I went to Ohio University from 2005 to 2009, and you were after me. So how we met was pretty cool and pretty interesting. How you reached out to me after your study, because that's your personality. You go after mastery, which is awesome. But you actually had the opportunity to coach one of my other young fellas who's younger than us. We just had him on the podcast 2 weeks ago. D
Oh, Nehemiah.
Nehemiah, yeah,
Oh, he coached
Nehemiah,
Nehemiah. That's wild. That's
yeah,
wild.
he briefly during training camp with the Jets.
Yeah.
So like, how was that whole experience in the NFL? Like, how was that for you, man? That's pretty cool.
Um, See, I have a very curious mind, which is it's like I love learning. Um, so I always knew that the NFL was the place for me because it's the top level. For a person who's literally going to wake up every day with some questions, like, "Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this?" So that that itch was met in the NFL. Not to mention, we're dealing with adults. We're dealing with men on the football field. There were ages in the DB room as young as Sauce Gardner, but there were also some ages that got up there to the 30 and 31 with Justin Hardy. So the aggression and the intent of football violence, let me say that properly, football violence, when you're dealing with adult men, that just had me it brought out a beast in me that has always been there. But now I'm around other people and everybody else is operating in this beast. And so that was amazing. It was amazing how humble the players were. If you had knowledge for them, they were receptive. It wasn't about who are you and da 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 da. Trust is definitely earned, but once they get to know you and realize you have their best interests at heart, you want to help them succeed so they can go, you know, get their check. I mean, it was amazing, man. It was
So,
amazing.
so coach, that's very interesting that you said that. So D, obviously I played a few years in the NFL, and coach already knows that. One thing that I noticed when I went to the NFL that I did not expect to see was how, for the most part, how more humble everybody was. Um, the thing about the NFL, and I'm comparing it to college. When I was in college, there were more egos when I played in college that really didn't deserve it. We were all broke back then. It's different now, so I couldn't imagine the egos in college. And I want to ask you a little bit about that, coach, with this whole transfer portal and NIL stuff. But when I got to the league, the first person who I met, well, that I remember when I was with New Orleans was Mark Brunell, who I grew up watching. He was like in his 14th year. And he was like, "Hey, what's up, Mark?" And I'm like, "Oh my God." But everybody was so much more humble in the NFL. And I think part of that was every day could be your last in the NFL.
Hmm.
It's a cutthroat, it's straight business. When I leave here, I go home to my wife and kids. I don't go home to my dorm room and play video games, with my
Hmm.
buddies. So it's just different. So I definitely bear witness with what you mentioned right there when it comes to the humble nature, and everybody's getting it because it's our livelihood.
Yeah. And I picked the brains of the vets. To me, what it means to be a good coach, that spectrum, I would say a small portion of that um, would be ranked by coaches, but a large portion of that would be what the players think a good coach is. And so I remember talking to Dwayne Brown, been playing since 2007, 2008. Al Woods, defensive line, been playing since 2010 in this league. And, you know, it was so cool to listen to them because they're so much older than I am, but I'm coaching. And I would say that's the biggest difference between the college dynamic and the pro dynamic, the collaboration.
Mm.
The collaboration to execution, not the authoritarian presentation to execution. And I'm not knocking college when you're dealing with an 18 to 22-year-old. The approach does need to be a little bit more of an authoritarian approach. Hey, I'm coach telling you to go do this.
Right.
Whereas the NFL was, hey, let's talk about this. Based on this, you all need to go do this. Any thoughts on that? You know, um, I'm not sure why my background is
Me either.
doing some, but
It's all good.
it's all good. We're gonna get right back in that thing. So yeah, man, the dynamic is different. And as far as the egos, in college, I'm a truth teller. Um, in the beginning, some players don't like that. Then over time, they're like, "Oh man, Coach Lucky really loves me," because I'll tell you the truth. I'm gonna tell you straight up. None of us have arrived. Period. And like you said, things can change very quickly. Um, Bodies can change, right? You were out there performing and then you're done, so things can change. And so we always just need to have that attitude of gratitude every day we hit the turf, you know? So,
Absolutely. And I started with the NFL, but let's take it all the way back. Let's take it all the way back to Ohio University. So there's a special individual who you and I both look up to, and just so happens to have a top, maybe future Hall of Famer quarterback as a son. Mr.
Mm-hmm.
Joey Burrow. So Jimmy Burrow, everyone, was my defensive coordinator at Ohio University. He's the first person who picked me up from the airport when I got there for my official visit. And great individual, great coach, great mentor. And that happened to be one of your mentors. So can you share a little bit about how that, like your first encounter with him and how he molded you as a coach?
Oh my gosh. Um, and before I get started, he's like my grandpa, first of all. And I say that we used to joke about that. Obviously, we're two different skin tones, so that used to be a joke, but he's like a grandfather to me. Um, the first time I met him, he saw the fire and the passion that I had. And he did not knock me for that. He just showed me how to groom it, how to keep it from overburning. Um, it's hard when a young coach has a whole bunch of right? Everybody's trying to figure that out. Like, okay, is this guy arrogant? Does he think he eh, but he did not do that with me. He realized who I was, the son of a Marine. So I already am very straight line, but I'm passionate with a lot of energy. So, I mean, I remember the first time Frank Solich knew my name. I was so excited. I said, "Oh, Coach Solich knows my name." You know, I'm just a student manager at the time. And he said, "That guy's got a lot of energy, Jimmy." And Coach Burrow was like, "Yeah, he's gonna be all right." And so I did all the work for Coach Burrow. I drew his cards, I made his cut ups, I made reports, and I poured into it. Man, I would stay. I'm a freshman in college in the office at midnight, drawing cards. And that's another thing for all the coaches on here. Everybody wants the spotlight. Everybody wants to be a coach, but you got to be willing to do the work. You got to be willing to do the work. Everybody wants to be a big time coach, but will you draw cards till midnight?
Mhm.
And then you got to wake up and do it again at 5:30 in the morning and go to class. Like, what are you willing to do? You know, what are you really willing to sacrifice? No, I didn't get to go home when everybody else got to go home. I didn't get to see my parents in undergrad. I didn't get to do all the parties because while my friends were partying, I was at the stadium, right? Like, while everybody was doing the festivities, I was at the stadium. My college roommates knew you're not going to see me for a while. He's at the stadium, right? So Coach Burrows, he saw that I wanted it. He saw I was hungry and he let me coach. He showed me how to coach. And I'll never forget this quote that he had on his door, or excuse me, in his office. A commitment must be made, a plan must be laid, a price must be paid.
Mm.
Mhm.
And I looked at that and I said, "Oh, coach, that's me." I said, "That's me." And he poured into me. By the time I was a junior and senior, there were no um there were no harsh critiques because I knew him. I studied him. It got to the point where he would leave his glasses and his script in the indoor, and I would already have grabbed it, headed back to the. That's the type of working relationship we had, where I knew exactly what he wanted. I was like there at all times to fill in the gaps and to help out. So I owe a lot to Coach Burrow. He knows how I feel about him. I always just check on Coach Burrow. So I was under him for 5 years at Ohio University.
So, and that, I'm so glad that you directed that to, coaches specifically because, I know some coaches and it's a lot of people don't understand how hard it is to break through. There's guys who've coached for 20, 30 years and don't have the resume that you have, and you're a young guy. Um, you put in the work, you put it in early, and you got around quality individuals. So I had to definitely, I have to give you definitely a congrats on that. Obviously, you haven't even really gotten started in your mind. You just now getting started, and you've already coached D1A, NFL. What was it, D1 AA, D2?
Yeah,
So
D1 AA.
yeah, man. So that's amazing, man. From an advice standpoint, let's stay on the coaches right now. If there's a coach out there who's trying to break through and just get his foot in the door, what do you have any advice for these guys?
Ooh, um, first of all, I think because the market has changed, the intentionality of coaching has changed. I've literally seen a market go from only player development to player development mixed with management to management. And I mean that not to throw shade to anyone I've ever come across, but number one, why you're doing it. Like, why are you doing this? You got young lives in your hands. And so that is so important to me. Um, if you are not the right person to develop young lives, then don't coach college football. Because this is a very, very strategic time for these young athletes. They're learning what their identity is. And so if you're not forming that properly, then you could be hindering their success. Um, Another thing too, you really do have to be yourself, but you have to be your best self. I remember the years where I wasn't trying to be my best self and I was just trying to be myself. And so as I got older, it's like, no, don't be yourself, be your best self. Because there's some parts of you that need to cease. So be your best self. And then be ready. Be ready. I
Mm.
used to say it all the time when I was a kid. If Nick Saban called you today and said, come work with my secondary, are you scrambling to get your materials together or are you ready?
Wow.
And like I live by that. Like right now, I'm ready. Whenever a phone call comes, I'm not going to put some cut ups together, get some pictures together, but it's ready. So I now interview ready. It's done. And so that's working behind closed doors. That's working when no one's looking. Young coaches, if you're leaving the office anywhere near the time of the older position coaches, you are so wrong. If the coaches are leaving at 8, you should probably stay to about 10. There's something you can be doing.
Mm.
So that's my thing for people who want to break in. Number one, for the right reason. Make sure you're going at this for the right reason, because when it gets hard and your reason is not solid and your reason is kind of fluff based on all the external things, there's going to be some challenging days for you because it's a challenging profession. So you have to make sure that your reasons are pure, and not motivated by the money. Money comes so far down the road in coaching. Now, if you break in and get a Power Five job or an NFL job, that is awesome. But just know, as a coach, this isn't this glamour lifestyle that everybody tries to make it out to be. It takes time. It takes time. Seed, time, harvest. That harvest is like it's down the road. So don't get into this thinking like, oh, I'm gonna make 6 figures and life's gonna be amazing. Like, oh, okay.
Right. So yeah, D, go ahead. Well, let me just say this. I'm getting chills right now,
Same,
Coach,
same.
because it's like that's so. Parents, please listen to this for your young fellas, because obviously they see Sundays during the games is glitz and glamour, but it's not that. This football journey is not that at all. The process, and I tell you, my young fellas now, I'm like, look, you gotta love this process. Is this the life that you are choosing? Because it ain't what you think it is.
Mm-mm.
You know, like it ain't highlights, it ain't the football games. That's such a small portion of ball. It's the development, it's the pain, it's the love, it's the sweat, it's the blood, it's the tears. But the thing is, if you love that process, you're gonna, you'll be fine. You gotta love the process, and then that's so transferable to life and business and your career. Apollo Creed, the actor, was it Carl Withers? Is that his name?
There is no tomorrow.
Right, and that's what he said. And the thing about it, I saw the actor, that actually, him talking about how he broke into the acting career. He said, if you're in this to become a superstar, a megastar, that's not how this works. You have to fall in love with the art of acting and then do it and just improve every single day. And I'm like, what you just said, it's the same thing. It's like it's the same principle, you know? So, man, amazing, man. Go ahead, D.
Nah, that's amazing because I'm sitting here like, man, I will be scrambling for my cut ups. I will be scrambling, So like, I'm not gonna lie, like I'm gonna go home. I mean, after this, after I put my daughter to sleep, I'm gonna definitely start putting that together. So I definitely appreciate that because, that's sometimes you need to hear it from someone else. So I know you talked about just recruit or just a coach. It started with development, and now it's moved like now the spectrum is more towards the management. So where does that leave a player trying to get recruited? Because it seems like from what you're telling me, hey, a coach is kind of investing in me when he's recruiting me. He's investing in my development for the next 2-3 years, and I can be something for him. Um, and now it's management. Where does that leave the high school player trying to get recruited? How has that changed recruitment for for the senior athlete?
I'm not sure if their process in picking the right university has changed. You still want to go to a school that, number one, you could see yourself going to if there was no more football. That's my opinion. You could interview 100 coaches and they would break their progression down in a different order. I think that you should go to a school where if there was no more football, some injury occurred, you still kind of like going to bed and waking up there. Number two, you should pick a program that is a fit for you and you fit it. There's mutual part of that relationship. Like I'm a fit there, I'm not a fit there, or that place fits me, that place does not fit me. Um, if you're a student athlete who is all about faith, and then you get to a staff and none of them are about faith, then that may not be a good fit for you. Um, things like that. Number one, or excuse me, moving forward, does the program win? Um, have they had success? Could I go have success at my position there, which then leads to my position? Okay, what's the background of success there? Like Ohio University, and why I always felt like I could recruit it is because you got Travis Carey, Ian Wells, Mark Parson, Julian Posey, Thad Turner, Mike Mitchell, like boom, boom. And I mean, and we could just keep going. And so when you're picking a school, I want to see the products that have come out of here. I want to see the young men who were developed here under whatever coach. So the coach doesn't come in to me into the process until like the sixth, the seventh category. And I think sometimes it happens too early. It's like, oh well, that coach recruited me and he sounds really cool. Okay, but let's take a step back because he could be gone. Because at the end of the day, a coach has to do what's best for their family. And if better opportunity comes for their family, they are obligated to do that as a husband and a father. So before you just go somewhere because of the coach, what about the program and the success positionally, uh, the reputation of the university and the alumni? People that I can get plugged in with who can help me in the business world, who can help me in different realms. So there's so much to the process of picking the right school. But when I made this statement about development versus management, not all great developers are hired into the role. And again, I have no intent of throwing shade of the profession. I love the profession, but the truth is, Mark Parson can develop DBs better than a lot of coaches coaching at the college level. He just didn't decide he wanted to be a college coach. So, in terms of evaluating a coach, and if they really know what they're talking about, then you need to bounce around from school to school and see, like, okay, this coach is for real. He told me my progression. He asked me the progression. So I had to regurgitate it in my visit. So, for example, when I have a visit, a defensive back, I'm going to take them through my progression. Okay. It goes like this: stance, starts, movements, finish. Stance, starts, movements, finish. That's the first part of my job. The second part is alignment, assignment, keys, technique. That's the second part of my job. That's the first and the second. Now we can talk about playing some DB. Then it goes field dimensions, the football field, the field zones, splits of the receiver, player identification, offensive personnel, down and distance, gaps. And you got to break it down. Then it goes to, okay, now let's talk about the receiver, the person who I am responsible for stopping. Releases, stems, routes, route tree, boom, quick game football, drop back football, play action, right? So, and we are responsible to give these young men all of the answers. We're not responsible to solve all their problems. They're going to have to go do that. Then they come back to us with, hey, coach, you told me to do this, but I got beat right here. Because that's the real part of being a coach. Hey, coach, you said that when I weaved and I da-da-da-da-da, that I could da-da-da-da-da. What happened? And we have to be able to say, okay, let's talk about this. So if you are not a developer, but you are just a manager, there are certain problems that you can struggle to solve based on your coaching ability. So that's what I meant by that. So I would encourage any DB, and I have some guys in my life who are 16 and they're highly recruited right now, and I tell them the truth. You better go play for somebody that's good, that knows what they're doing, that will get you right. Because at this position, you will get embarrassed. Woo! Not knowing what you're doing, like no other position.
Yeah.
Right.
If you don't know what you're doing, oh man,
Yeah.
this isn't a position to play around.
Right.
Yep. And Mark, that goes into what remember I was talking about the one-on-ones, that coach, that quote, he was a manager. Remember? It was like, hey, my scheme when Coach Lucky, I put a quote out there. One of my coaches, he's, a very big scheme guy. He's a head coach at a Power 5 right now. And I asked him, like, coach, man, like, why didn't we do one-on-ones? Because I felt like I could jump the depth chart a little bit if you just do one, because this dude can't cover. Like, this dude can't cover, coach. He's, I don't care about that, man. Like, I care about that you learn my scheme. We play with 11 players on the field. We don't play one-on-ones. So I was like, man, like, I thought that was kind of a cover for him to, cover up certain guys, but that's how he believed. He believed, my quarter scheme and, my Oki and all that, like, that's all that matters. You got to know this, you got to know that. You're rarely even going to be in a one-on-one. And if you're in a one-on-one, you can give a cone call, you give some type of call, you're going to have safety help. So he didn't truly believe in wasting time in one-on-ones and in practice. But then I get a coach, he's at the Vikings right now. All we did was play press man. That's all we did was play press man. I mean, the defense overall wasn't a good defense because we're in man all day. But, as far as practice, that's all we did in one-on-ones. And I was able to get further. It's the same program, same 4 years, but I was able to get further along with this coach versus this coach simply because of that, that management versus developer. So, so Mark, that was the full story on, the one-on-one situation.
Oh yeah.
I try not to let preference block truth. In my young opinion of this sport. Okay, let's talk about the box. So that's B to B, or we can say C to C. But when we're talking about the internal part of the game, they do one-on-ones because they have to win one-on-one battles. Let's talk about the second level defender versus the second level offensive eligible. They do one-on-ones with inside run. They do one-on-ones coming out of the backfield in the programs that decide they want to do one-on-ones. In my view of the sport, if anybody should practice one-on-one moments more than anyone else, it should be the players on the perimeter,
Mhm.
which is why you do your stalk block drill first. So you can learn how to play the stalk and go, the crack and go. So that's why perimeter players need one-on-ones, because truthfully, I understand why a coach would say that the scheme is the most important thing. I totally agree with that. After scheme, it's now me versus him. I might have been in quarters and I got to a hinge. I would not do that in one-on-ones, but the truth is, I'm defending this deep fourth, and now he is in my fourth, and it's me and him. Now, you could be in a scheme where the corner does not take the dig and he stays high. Two's up, I'm up. And he truly plays it like true zone. Okay, well, now there's a tandem. Okay, so if you um if you lead a defense where majority of your defense has tandems, then you may not care about one-on-ones. That's where Nick Saban and some of those coaches who do 2-on-2s, slot cover, right? So, but man, there's so many one-on-one moments for a DB and a receiver, a tight end and a safety. If you're on the perimeter, you need the development of being able to make a play against one eligible threat coming at you. And I'm not throwing any type of shade or opposition to the coaches who don't believe in one-on-ones, because a lot of coaches who don't believe in one-on-ones, they still run 2-on-2 slot cover. They still allow their DBs and receivers to get releases in a 5-yard area. So it's all about, again, like we talk about what you believe, but man, a DB, I sure do like one-on-ones, boy. I like talking trash to those receivers, and I like how competitive it gets. It's me versus you, and now it's time to see whose skill is better. And when you sit on your route, I'm gonna sit down right there with you. So that gets me fired up.
Yeah, I agree with you on that as well. Because even if you have a mostly zone scheme, there gonna be times where you're gonna be in one-on-one. You're gonna have to win that one-on-one matchup, and it may be third and short. We may have to cover one. We may have to go man across the board. And my thing was, I want to be prepared for it. Like, let's do one of. I remember a couple of weeks. The coach, we didn't have enough time for that period. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa! I need to sharpen up my tools, man. Because you don't want to get into the game and not feel comfortable because you didn't get your
Mm-mm.
reps in.
Mm-mm.
And the thing is, I remember when I played for the Saints. This is back in 2009 ish. During the season, we take off the pads, take off the shells, and just mostly jerseys. Because you have it's a long season. Well, with New Orleans, we didn't do one-on-ones throughout the whole year. That was under Coach Greg Williams, who I love. Greg Williams, one of the best coaches I ever played for. But Dennis Allen, he's the head coach now. He was our DB coach, but he was more of a scheme guy, very collaborative, like you mentioned. But we didn't do one-on-ones during the year. And I'm like, man, I really like one-on-ones. Back in Houston under Coach David Gibbs, who I think he's the co-DC with UCF now. But we always had at least one day of one-on-ones. And I felt like it did make us more sharp, even though we did play more man-to-man coverage for the Texans back then. But I liked it, man. It did something to your confidence. And I think at the end of the day, there are going to be times where you're going to have to guard a Travis Kelce or, whoever's the top guy right now. What's his name? Lamb? What's the guy? CeeDee Lamb?
He's tough.
He's tough. So I agree with I agree with both you guys.
But even in business, right? If we're looking at it from a managerial standpoint, supervisor standpoint, everything needs to be done in percentages because it's got to add up.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm a cover 3, cover 4 coach, then 70% or 60% of my season will not be spent in 10 minutes of one-on-ones, because that's not going to marry up to the actual situations of body movement that the players are in. Now, you said in Houston you all played a lot of man. Well, of course you did a lot of one-on-ones. But I don't think you can vacate from one-on-ones altogether. I just think you have to create a smaller percentage if you believe that because of your zone-led scheme, I don't need all of that one-on-one time, right? And so the beauty of number one, we can get that in releases in a 5-yard drill. But my favorite phase, as everybody else's is, where the money is made from the break point to the catch point, the top of the route.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can find ways to create that situation and make it realistic as possible for your players from the break point to the catch point without one-on-ones, great. So be it. You know what I mean? But they better get developed from the break point to the catch point. And I think that's the most important thing.
Absolutely. So I want to ask you this. I want to take it back to, first of all, this is great information, great knowledge, man. There's a lot of people who's going to benefit from this, and I want to ask you, from a coach's perspective, what's your advice for parents back in high school, right? How can they help their young fella, um, or the young ladies, because girls are playing football now too, but how can they help their student athlete get an opportunity to play college ball? What's your advice on that?
I think the first thing is teach them about college. If they did go to college, teach them about college. Teach them about finding a major, picking a major, credit hour, like parents are not coaches. And so there should be a gap, right? That student athlete might just need you to be a parent, number one. So you got to know your child. Sometimes those lines can get crossed and it can be a little agitating for both parties. So it just depends. Do you need your parent just be mom, just be dad, just be guardian, just be uncle? Just teach me what a credit hour is. Like just take me on a visit, right? Might not need anything from you. But now that parents have gotten hip to recruiting and all the ways social media helps that, now you're starting to see parents so active on social media, you know, tagging their child and please recruit my baby and da 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 da. And rightfully so. They've seen a formula that's led to success. They've seen exposure and how that helps these young kids, these student athletes. And so I would say, just help them be managers of their social media. Obviously, number one, that everything they do is appropriate, representing themselves and the family. But number two, making sure they're posting. Hey, did you post anything today? I mean, if I was a parent and my child was a student athlete in this time in high school, I would hope if they're coming up to me asking me to take them to camps, asking me to do this, take them to game visits. Okay, you want to play college ball? Yes, yes, I do. Okay, well, did you post anything online today so
Mm-hmm.
that you could get some exposure? If you want to play college ball and you don't have a lot of highlight tape, why are you not posting something on your content?
Mm-hmm.
I just I don't think that makes any sense. You don't have any offers, but you don't post anything.
Wait, so coach, I got a question for you then, because I'm back in the old days. We didn't have social media, so you telling me coaches look at social media? They look at this.
I mean, how could you not? There's a
Mm,
for you section and there's a following section.
mm,
So if 80 kids that I'm recruiting all went and liked a post of this athlete that I'm not even aware of, it's gonna pop up on my for you.
mm,
And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, I like the way this guy moves. Man, this guy. So then I'm like, let me go see his profile. He's got nothing going on. Well, does he have some tape? Okay, he's got tape. Is it tape nice? Okay, is the tape not nice? Game film. So then that's when you start recruiting. That's how recruiting works. Recruiting is all about exposure. Did we get exposed to that student athlete by word of mouth, by Twitter, Instagram, by Huddle? Because sometimes when I recruit, I just go type the high school team's name on Huddle. After I do that, I see which tape has the most views. The tape that's got 10,000 views, I can assume that they're a like a real top deal athlete being recruited. Let me go type their name in on Google. Did they pop up on Rivals? Did they pop up on On3? Did they pop up on this website, that website? Okay, well, okay, this person's got offers. Okay, we need to. So I mean, it's all about exposure. So to say that you want to play college ball and you don't have any offers, That's okay. There's still hope. You got to have faith, but you're not posting anything.
Wow.
So how do you think someone's going to see you? Like, I don't
Right.
understand how you think. Do you think? And here's another real statement. There are 50 states. How in the world can us coaches see every athlete in 50 states? Isn't that an unrealistic expectation?
Yes.
And for us coaches who love recruiting, there's no way I'm going to find out about every player. Now, I will be diligent. I will know my area. You better believe that. And like a person like me, I'm going to know my area. You know, so-and-so, 2026, 27. Yep, I know his daddy. I know his uncle. I've been talking to him. Boom, boom, boom. Heard about him at a restaurant when I was recruiting. Da, 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 da. But do you know how many kids are missed out of exposure alone? So that's my take on that, man.
And I'm so glad you said that, because that's me and Mark talk about it all the time. But then, you know, these kids, they DM me all the time on the page and like, hey, coach, how do I do this? And it's, you know, zero posts, absolutely zero. I'm like, man, go put a bench press up. Go put you doing some back pedal drills. Go do something. So, man, I truly appreciate that advice, because I don't think players are aware that no one's really coming to get you anymore. No one's, you know, sitting in maybe you do, but no one's really sitting in the stands with a clipboard going to every single game. And you know, that's how they
Now,
get recruited.
coaches still go to games
Yeah.
after a certain point in the season
Mm-hmm.
when they're able to. But it's just like, that's 3 or 4 out of the 12 total months. Now, in the recruiting, you know, there's recruiting windows, the open period, the closed period, this period, the dead period, the contact period. So it's like, I mean, we don't have all 12 months to try to see you, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I got one more for the parents,
Mhm.
because this really bothers me. Stop texting me without saying your full name, where you go to school, and what position you play, and that you're looking for an opportunity. It's as if we're not teaching these young kids social skills.
Mm.
What up, coach? Man, I don't know you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Who am I texting? Oh, I'm so and so. What school?
Mhm.
Do you know how many kids I get a chance to talk to?
Yeah.
So then, or the in person. Hey, how you doing, man? Coach Lucky. I stick my hand out, they just shake it. I'm just like,
Mm.
you know, I understand the increase of technology. It's 2024. But please, let's make sure we're teaching kids social skills like greetings. Hi, I'm Mark Parson. I attend Fort Union, defensive back, class of 2026. Like, and look me in the eyes, so
Right.
I know you real about it. Like, you really are serious about this, you know. And so that's not being taught, because I'm seeing way too many examples of the opposite. So
And
I'm
that's why
convinced that that's not being taught.
and that's why it's so important to have a positive male role model in a young man's life. That's why it's just so important. And you guys, as a coach, I mean, you a lot of times you may even mess around and fill that role for a
And
short
be that
amount of
role
time,
for
you know,
sure.
which is great. And I love your tenacity for it. And you know what I did? So I actually work with college guys college DBs who are about to go into the NFL. So last year, I had one guy go to the NFL and a couple other guys, they're a little younger, but I said the same thing. I said, you got to understand, guys, these coaches are humans, just like you and me. Like,
Yep.
I'm 37 years old right now, but it feels like just a second ago I was 17. You know, life goes by fast. So I have desires in my life, right? I have goals, and I'm trying to reach different levels. I'm a person, so connect with me, build this relationship. The first time you speak to me from a player to coach standpoint shouldn't be asking me for anything. You should have reached out to me 2 years ago and said, hey, Coach Lucky, just let you know, my name's Mark Parson. I'm out of Richmond, Virginia. I've researched you. I know where you went to school. I know what you've done. I know all the places you coached, and I love your philosophy on X, Y, and Z. So I just want to introduce myself. 2 years prior, before it come, building relationships, which is transferable in business, family, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why I have my guys. I have my guys get on LinkedIn. I said, look up the coaches that the NFL coaches that are scouting you already, or the teams who you see fit. Follow them, build your platform, your LinkedIn platform, and start reaching out and research them. Take time to get to know who this person is and be like, man, you scored 80 touchdowns back in 1985. Like in Houston, Texas. So it's just it takes work. It goes back to
Effort,
what you said earlier, man. It's
effort,
work,
effort,
right?
Mhm.
effort. Because
Mhm.
it's actually harder for me to connect with a coach than a player. Because at least a player offers me something.
Mm.
This thing can at least start off transactional.
Right.
Whereas a coach to coach, sometimes to be truthful with you, man, guys don't want to talk because they're just so private. And that's okay. That's to each his own. Some coaches just want to be private. They want to go to work, they want to go home. And anything in between is just extra. So and that's okay. So it's not easy to connect with a coach all the time, especially the ones who don't like, always being on the phone or a little bit more private, from a coach to coach standpoint. But player to coach, I mean, you got free game. I mean, you
Mm.
you got a chance to at least get a response. You know,
Gotcha.
Yeah, yeah, and man, I appreciate all that. Again, the insight what you see and what you're looking for, just as far as the communication factor with recruitment. But when it comes down to the metrics,
I already knew you were going there.
yeah, when it comes down to the metrics, what are you looking for? Like, what is there? Do you have are you someone who's like, hey, Mark Parson? I know Mark Parson. I know what he did at his height and his weight. Or, I know a lot of Power Five guys. I just want them tall and skinny. I mean, I just want them tall and lanky. And
Mm.
I'll deal with the rest. What are you looking for as far as the body type of an athlete when you're recruiting?
I would say the first thing I'm looking for is a straight dog because I have a very tough personality. It's very on you. It's not very laid back. I have a militaristic approach. I'm very structured. I'm very detailed, very regimented, and I'm just no holds barred with it. So my meetings are like boom, boom, boom. So if you're not that type of person who's gonna do well in that type of style classroom, then you and I are not going to be a good fit,
Mm.
you know? And I'm not saying everybody I recruit has to be a big time talker, but I need to see some dog in you. I need to see how you're wired. I need to see if you're going to go pout and be a palms up guy just because I said one comment that your ears didn't like. I need to see, can you follow directions after I just yelled at you for about 15 seconds? Like, I'll adjust as a coach to the players who need to be whispered to versus the ones who kind of do need to be yelled at. But so the first thing I'm looking for, honestly, as parenting styles have changed and we're dealing with these Gen Zs, I'm looking for the Gen Z dog.
Mm.
I'm looking for a dog that doesn't need affirmation every 5 minutes about whether they're doing okay or not. Those are hard to find. So maybe I'm looking for a rare type of player. I am. um, Someone who follows directions. I'm okay with taking risk, but did you do what you were told? Cannot trust someone who doesn't do what they're told. So like those are like the top two before we even get to the tape. Like the tape might have caught my eye, but now that me and you are on the phone, like those are the things. So I'm asking open-ended questions. Tell me about a time when you've had to conquer. Tell me about a time when you've battled adversity. Tell me what angers you. Tell me what makes you sad. Tell me what makes you happy. Tell me what motivates you. If you cannot talk to me in the recruitment process, it's hard for me to build a relationship with you. Therefore, the trust is still minimal because I don't know you. So I need to be able to figure out who you are, what makes you tick. If I can't do that, then I can't say I know this guy, you know? Um, as far as attributes, I'm 5'7". Mark played 5'9", 5'10" with a helmet on. So to sit here and say, oh, well, he's got to be 6 foot, I don't even have those genes. So I'm looking for twitch, which is change of direction. I'm looking for ball skills, which is athleticism, being able to judge the ball, play the ball, get my hands here, 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 lean and catch the ball, go cap the route, steal the ball. And I'm looking for tackling. Like get him down. I don't care if you tackle like Ray Lewis if you're always giving up the 9 ball.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously the coverage part is first.
Right.
But if you can defend the 9 and you kind of just got those get him down tackles, I'm okay with that. Just get him down. Now the safety obviously has to be a little bit better of a tackler than the corner. The safety's got to be willing to actually have his chest be a part of the contact of the tackle. Corner does not have to put their chest on people to
Mm-hmm.
play corner, and so I try to be realistic. Like, there's some people, I want a 6'2", 200 pounds. He's a killer as a tackler, and he can cover anybody in the country. Okay, those are what we call unicorns. Okay, those come probably every decade.
Mm-hmm.
That's an all-decade corner right there. So I try to adjust, man, but I really need a dog. Me personally, if you're very sensitive, you're gonna struggle with me. And I'm not saying that I don't have a lot of love in me either. I have a lot of love. It's just you have to hear the message. If you're blocked out by a tone and you never even get to the message part, our relationship is going to start off a little tricky. And let this be clear to any athlete watching, it is not a coach's job to nurture. That sorry, you're looking for that from the wrong person. Mom, aunt, community lady at church, that was their responsibility. My love for an 18-year-old who does not come from my flesh, it won't be very nurture like. It's going to be a tough love development because you're playing a tough sport.
Right.
If this was bowling, I wouldn't have to talk to you like this. The truth is, I have to empower you with courage to go play one of the most dangerous sports known to man and not think about it with limited fear, like just this small. Like I'm just gonna go out there and play. So it's not gonna sound how you want it to sound. So notice I talked about all that other stuff before the talent, for that because talent. Who are you when the talent is equated? How do you get off blocks when that guy over there wants to really bite your face off? I don't know if you watched the SEC, but when I watched the Georgia Tennessee game, it wasn't just a tremendous amount of drop back pass. It was RPO, stalk, bubble. And those splits were.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can't get off blocks and the other guy wants to block you to the sideline, man, that's heart. A lot of that is heart. It's technique and heart. And so an athlete who struggles to be receptive to this right here, how I'm breaking it down, is probably not the type of athlete that I'm looking for. You could go talk to another DB coach who studies psychology, who whispers. That's not my gift. So they could go get something out of a DB in a different way. I'm just, as a recruiter, I'm just giving you who I am. And I'm only 28. I got a long way to go. I'm just keeping it real.
There's a couple things that I gathered from that, coach. A player's or a person, a young fella, his ability to receive feedback could be a determining factor of his success or not. My ability to receive feedback without getting offended.
Yeah.
You know, and say, hey, Parson, you got to come on, you got to do this. Oh man, coach always on me. Or I'm like, yes sir, thank you, man. It's a gratitude thing.
Correct.
Grateful that someone is giving me feedback because my purpose is to be the best I could be. You know, I think that's amazing. So players out there, parents out there, develop that attitude to be grateful for feedback, because that's that a guy like Coach Lucky, he's going to have an amazing career as a coach. That's what he's looking for. He's looking for your attitude and your ability to be open and wanting to get better every day. And another thing you mentioned too, when it comes to how we show love, I told my wife this the other day with my kids. I show my kids love differently than she shows love. And what it is I believe that as a man, the way that I show love is by taking full responsibility for you. So holding you accountable, setting a high standard, and saying, I'm responsible for you. That's how I show that I love you. And I expect this and this. Now, where my wife, she's the nurturer. She's like, it's just different ways that we show love. So it's kind of what I'm seeing from, what you said was how you show love is by pouring out into an individual, a student athlete, for developing them that will help them in life.
It's me understanding your emotions without allowing your feelings to become a crutch.
Right.
I'm not carrying you.
Mm.
And considering that we have not birthed children, there's going to be a different response just off DNA.
Right.
Right? Considering that we do not feed children from our body, there's going to be a different response just off DNA. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand emotions.
Right.
I can meet you where you are. It's just, don't be thinking I'm going to allow you to soak in this tub of feelings. We got a job to do.
Right. And that's what a man does.
We got a job to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So what you got, D?
No, and man, it's just when he's speaking, I have kind of real world examples on how University of Hawaii, like we went after the SEC bounce backs. So that's how we kind of made our come up. It's like anyone who got kicked out of the SEC, we were coming to get them. A lot of them were 4-star, 5-star athletes. But then when it came down to being coached, I'm like, oh, now I know why you got kicked out. It wasn't, oh man, that coach hated on me. It wasn't a lot of 4-star, 5-star guys. By the time they get to college, no one's held them accountable for anything. And then, the second they get held accountable for the smallest thing, I'm like, man, he cannot move past what coach said to him 2 weeks ago. And then you got the 3-star guy who's, I don't know, maybe never gotten a word of encouragement, walked on, paying his own money. NCAA doesn't even allow him to eat with the team kind of thing. And he's, taking spots and getting scholarships. So, and then I going to the Dog, I had a special teams coach, man, he was like, he used to make people feel so small because he'd go on film and he'd be like, if I was walking through an alley, I'd take this guy with me. I'll take that guy with me. Like, you can't, like, if I'm in the alley with you, like, I know it's a 1-on-5. I know I'm not getting any help from this guy in a dark alley kind of thing. So that was just his way of saying, like, this is deeper than, just football. Like, I like the attitude, the way, if we really had to fight for our lives, I would pick this guy and I wouldn't pick you. And I think that's the way of, him saying, like, I want a certain type of cat in there with me. And it's not just about how fast you are, where you come from, how tall you are type of thing. So, yeah,
and the modern day Gen Z. So you really need to do some research on generations. For example, I'm the last of the millennial. The millennials are like 83 to like 96, 97, right? We're currently on the Gen Zs, and they are different. Putting them down rarely will encourage them to go bite your face off. It's not an effective coaching style. It's not going to work. Oh, well, It's as if you're calling them soft, and then they're just shrugging like,
Like,
because that's not how you reach them.
mm-hmm.
Now, if you have to say, I believe in you, you can do more, you can be tougher, right? Versus, oh man, what is that sorry stuff you over here bringing me? You can't even hardly. Well, when we were coming up, we got the second one.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was a United States Marine back in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So I came up like that. It was a challenge, making you feel like you had low masculinity, or like your willingness for violence was low, your physical, your aptitude, your mental toughness. But this Gen Z group, you have to do it from the positive way.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot do it from the negative way. It will not work.
Mm-hmm.
I got a PowerPoint that Nick Saban had presented on Gen Zs on my hard drive, and there's so much data that talks about Gen Zs and our approach to the Gen Z. They need to be affirmed, whether you like it or not. And I told my wife, I said, "Wow, I give players what I didn't even get," and it
Right.
is amazing feeling when you can compromise and have love and do it effectively, because they need to be affirmed. They need to be told good job. They need to be told why they're doing something. I've never asked my parents why a day in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Facts.
They're called commands. When someone says go, you go.
Right.
You don't get to say why.
Mm-hmm.
But we are in a generation of kids where they need the why. They're process oriented in the steps that it would take to go achieve, and they need to know why. Why am I doing this? You know? So, and I give it to them. If you can't stop the 8 and the 9, you can't play for me. Well, why? Because you're the perimeter defense player and the deep defense player, and behind you, there's nobody. That's why. And the objective of the game is to get the ball back there for a touchdown. Do you understand now? So if you can't defend the 8 and the 9, bro, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. You
Yeah.
got to go play something else.
And it's interesting. And man, I would love to look at that PowerPoint, because I'm like, man, why can't I break through with my nephews? But that's a story for a different
Hey,
different
wait till your
time.
kids are teenagers. Oh my God.
Yeah. I'm just like, man, but we can't even get through the dynamic warm up without tears. But I'm sitting here listening, so I'm like, man, I'm coaching the way it's a lot of the way I've been coached, and I'm like, man, I'm just telling you. But anyways, I want to get into, so we got the Gen Z, and they need to be affirmed, and they're the ones that get what we all wanted in the NIL. So how have you seen that kind of maybe change the coaching world, if any? Like, how, so like, hey, I know they're Gen Z and I can't talk to them a certain way, but now I really can't talk to them a certain way. Or, have you had problems keeping guys who have had success in the MAC, and now they want to go, they want to go higher in the transfer portal? Can you just elaborate on just your experience? Does it have to be good or bad? Just your experience with the NIL in the last 5 years, NIL and transfer portal.
Okay, first of all, I've only been at one Power Five since the NIL has really expounded, just taken off, just like, and I was a GA. So there's just certain responsibilities that's not even your lane to go
Mm-hmm.
discuss some of those things. I think every university, every staff has someone in place who can hold this conversation for education and information. It is not the DB coach's job to teach every detail about NIL. And how would he know? Now, universities are probably hosting, teaching their coaches of all sports, like, hey, here's what we're saying. We're using the phrase collective. We're saying this. We're saying this. But, truthfully, you definitely want to have an NIL coordinator at this time. You know, someone who that's their bread and butter. That's what they talk about. They teach the parents. They teach the student athletes. Um, with that being said, in terms of player treatment, yes, if you treat a player like garbage at this day and age, they will leave, and they have that right. Um, the transfer portal, the ability to void a commitment, because that's what it is. The ability to void a commitment and go start another one. They have that liberty. Like it, love it, or hate it, they can take a commitment and put a stop on that and say, this commitment's over. I'm going to go commit to somebody else. So, how you treat them will lead to them staying or leaving. And if you treat them good and they leave, they just have a better opportunity. That's the world that was created for them. Someone said that that was going to be a magnificent idea. I'm guessing it's lucrative for someone. Um, and that's the world we're living in. So as a coach, you got to make adjustments. You got to make adjustments. If talking to people like trash is the only way you know how to coach, then it'll be challenging when that player can easily leave and go somewhere that's potentially even better for them. I just encourage that. I encourage that you fight before you just leave. So if you're leaving because you're not playing, I encourage that you fight it out first. That you talk to your position coach when he has a moment. That you ask him, can we meet with the coordinator when he has a moment? And if that cannot solve it, you knock on the head coach's door and you say, hey, do you have a minute? I just really want to play, and right now I'm not. So what's the deal? Communicating like an adult is the number one thing that these college athletes need to learn how to do. Don't be a boy about it. Be a man about it. Go knock on the door and say, hey, do you have a minute? Do you have a minute is a courtesy statement before you just barge into someone's office and start ripping your mouth. Hey, do you have a minute? I only need a few. Or can I come back at another time? Can we set up 10 minutes? Coaches are going to appreciate a student athlete that comes at them like an adult professionally. For the athletes who are leaving because they are playing and they have better along, that's a gamble. Sometimes better is not always better. Sometimes better is better. So that's a gamble. No different than coaches who leave. I've left jobs for another job. Sometimes they were better, sometimes they weren't. And so that's just the gamble that you make. But just know this for every student athlete, man, the pros in college is so different. I don't care how much money you think you're talking about right now. The pros in college are nothing alike. That's why every rookie is put through a series of courses to learn how to live this life, whether it's money management, women, drugs and alcohol, gun policies, gambling. You got so much to learn about how to be a professional in the NFL. So, I just don't want our focus to be on money and miss the actual college experience. Walking around the campus without headphones just to see, man, my campus is really pretty, right? Going to the student center and hitting some event that, just tried it out and it was an awesome event. A tie-tying event, a this event, a that event, if your program's not already bringing that in-house. So just enjoy being in college, because I'm telling you, life after college, oh man, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. And the pros? Listen. Oh man. Nobody has to love you to coach you. That's so anywho.
Nah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that, coach, and I'm glad you brought it back to a realistic
And go to
perspective.
class.
Oh my god! Yeah,
Talking about some money. Go to class. I mean,
yeah,
Lord have mercy.
yeah.
Go to
People, yeah,
class.
people don't realize it. And Mark, you talk about this all the time. You know, the connections that you can make in those 4 to 5 years to set yourself up for the rest of your life in college that are not NIL based. You know, who you meet, who you talk to, the alumni. You know, who you associate yourself with. My coach just tell me this all the time. You never know which one of your teammates is gonna, is gonna be CEO. You never know which one of your classmates is gonna be CEO, and a lot of them will look back on how you treated them or your work ethic in class or how you acted around the campus. Man, I actually got a job offer from someone who, man, it was a dorm, 2 dorms down. It was like, hey, man, I saw you
Wow.
on LinkedIn, and I'm doing this. I remember you're a cool guy. You treated me this way, and I'm just seeing if you need a job, man. I'm here in life, and I remember you. So it's crazy how things that have nothing to do with football and just being in camp or being on campus, being in college can affect your life. 10 years down the road. So I'm glad you gave us that insight, man. I appreciate
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
NIL, baby. That's
it.
that's the world. So
Yeah.
you better put your seatbelt on and you better learn how to do it. Or else
Yep.
you're gonna get left behind. So
Yeah.
as Kevin Hart once said, you're gonna learn today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
gonna learn today.
Well,
Well, Coach, I really appreciate your time. We'd love to have you as a come back on the podcast in the near future and get your insight on some clips where we have some critiques, whether it's 1-on-ones or just in the game. We'll definitely edit it for you, man. We would love to have you on the podcast again, and we really appreciate your knowledge and wisdom, brother.
I appreciate you all, man. This is always fun. Just being able to fellowship, talk a little ball, and Mark. Hopefully, I see you in Indianapolis.
Yep.
If you're going to the combine, and I'm always down to chop up some film and tell you that corner was sitting in a chair and his feet got
Mm-hmm.
too wide, and that's why he got beat. So
yeah.
Yes, sir.
For sure. I'm gonna try to make my way out there for sure. I would love to meet you. I'd love to pick your brain. That's one thing, that I relate to is I'm always trying to I don't have as many connections as I wish I had, but I'm always trying to learn. I'm always trying to learn, and I find myself learning off of what I've, learning from guessing or just learning from what I think they're doing. So I would love to sit and, talk ball with you for sure. And I just want to tell you, I learned a lot just from hearing you speak that I'm going to use, in the future, that I'm going to use, like I said, I train my nephews today and I'm already going to train them differently,
Mm-hmm.
so,
I
yeah,
appreciate that.
I truly, truly appreciate you sitting down and having the time for us. And yeah, let's definitely talk in the future.
No doubt, baby. Cut off to 8 and a 9. You might be able to keep a job, baby. Ain't that right, Marky Mark?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You better be able to cut off to 8 and
Mm-hmm.
9, baby.
Yeah.